When you're young or even just early in your journey with God, there's this urgency to chase everything. You want the job, the relationship, the approval, the applause. You want to be seen, to be heard, to be known. And it's not even all bad. It's natural. But with time, you start to realize that some of what you were fighting for wasn't worth the sleepless nights. Some of the people you lost sleep over don't even cross your mind anymore. Time has this divine way of peeling back the layers and showing you what actually matters. See, time is a revealer. It doesn't lie. It doesn't sugarcoat. It waits. It watches. And then one day you look back and realize the things you thought were everything were actually just distractions. Time humbles you like that. It shows you that the real riches in life aren't always flashy. They don't come with noise. They come with peace. They come with integrity. They come with knowing you obeyed God even when no one was clapping for you. Time will expose the things you thought you needed. You'll look at an old prayer journal and you'll see something you begged God for, and now you thank Him for saying no. That's growth. That's vision cleared up through the lens of experience. What looked like a loss back then, you now see as a rescue. What felt like rejection was really God's protection. And you only get that kind of clarity when you've lived through it. You can't read it in a book. You can't borrow it from someone else's testimony. Time has to teach you that one. There's something sacred about learning to value what lasts. Because temporary satisfaction will always scream louder than eternal significance, especially in a world that celebrates quick wins and shiny packaging. But time teaches you how to tune your ears to the quiet things that last. Faithfulness, patience, consistency, honor, forgiveness. These don't trend, but they endure. And let's be real, the enemy will try to get you to rush, to panic, to settle, because he knows that if you wait long enough, you'll start to see things more clearly. That's why time is dangerous to the enemy, because time with God matures you. Time in His Word shapes your appetite. Time in His presence gives you discernment. Suddenly you're not as easily impressed. You're not swayed by clout. You're grounded. Sometimes you've got to live long enough to realize that peace is a greater flex than popularity. That having the Holy Spirit guide your steps is better than having thousands of people like your post. That raising your children in the fear of God is more valuable than being known by strangers. That walking in obedience when it's hard hits different when you see how God rewards those who diligently seek Him, not just those who are loudly. You may not see the value of your choices right away. Sometimes maturity doesn't feel like a reward, it feels like sacrifice. But time will show you the fruit. Time will show you that staying faithful paid off, that keeping your heart clean protected your future, that trusting God, even when it didn't make sense, built something eternal in you. So if you're in a place where you're wondering if all this obedience, all this discipline, all this quiet perseverance is even worth it, wait. Wait on the Lord. Time will prove it was. Time will reveal that what you built in secret, God will honor in public. Because time may test, but it never wastes the truth. You know, it takes time to realize that not everyone is meant to walk with you forever. And at first, that hurts, because we attach so much meaning to people, what they meant to us, what we shared, how they made us feel seen. And when someone we trusted leaves, or someone we counted on changes, it feels like a part of us gets pulled away with them. But over time, you begin to understand something deeper. That some people were never meant to stay. They were meant to shape a part of your journey, not define the whole path. God, in His wisdom, allows certain people in your life for a season. They may have helped you grow, encouraged you through a tough patch, or simply mirrored who you were at that stage of life. But when God starts to move you to another level, not everyone can go. And that's not rejection. That's protection. That's alignment. Because when God starts refining your calling, He also starts refining your circle. You can't carry dead weight where you're going. Not everyone has the spiritual stamina to walk with you into purpose. And that's okay. What time will teach you, if you're patient enough to listen, is that your identity can't be tied to who stays and who leaves. Because people change, feelings shift, seasons evolve. But if your identity is rooted in who God says you are, you'll survive the exits. You'll grieve, yes. You'll question it, sure. But you'll come out stronger, wiser, more aware of who truly belongs in your next chapter. Time will open your eyes to the reality that not every friendship is covenant. Some are convenient. Some are conditional. Some are meant to teach you discernment. And when you grow, your vision gets sharper. You don't look at people the same. You start asking deeper questions. Do they push me toward God? Do they speak life? Do they challenge me to grow? Because love without truth is just comfort, and comfort can't carry you through purpose. There's also something powerful about learning to let go without bitterness. That takes time too. It's easy to hold a grudge. It's easy to replay the betrayal, rehearse the disappointment. But time with God will soften your heart and strengthen your discernment. You'll start to see that even the pain had a purpose, that even the ones who hurt you pushed you closer to God, that even the distance created clarity. Sometimes you don't see the blessing in the goodbye until you've had time to breathe outside the dysfunction. Sometimes it's not until you're standing in peace that you realize how much chaos you were tolerating just to keep someone in your life. But God doesn't ask you to cling to people, He asks you to cling to Him. Because He's the only one who won't change, who won't leave, who won't love you based on conditions. And when you've walked with Him long enough, you start to crave that kind of consistency in your relationships. You don't want fake anymore. You don't want shallow anymore. You want substance. You want people who pray for you, not just post about you. People who will call you out, not just hype you up. And that kind of tribe takes time to find, but it's worth waiting for. So if someone walked away, or if God pulled you apart from people you thought would always be there, trust the process. Time is teaching you what your heart couldn't handle in the moment. Let it, because the right people, those who are assigned, not just attached, will meet you at the next level, not cling to your past. One of the most humbling lessons that only time can teach you is that control is an illusion. We like to believe that if we plan enough, work hard enough, or pray in just the right way, everything will unfold exactly as we envision it. But the truth is, God never promised us control. He promised us His presence. And that's the difference. Because while we're trying to manipulate outcomes and protect ourselves from disappointment, God is quietly, patiently, and intentionally working out something far bigger than we can see. There's a reason why doors close. There's a reason why the plan you were banking on crumbled. And sometimes it's not punishment, it's positioning. Because God, in His sovereignty, knows what's around the corner, when all we can see is what's in front of us. And He will lovingly, but firmly, strip us of our illusion of control so that we'll finally learn how to trust Him, not just with the good parts of the story, but with the tension, with the waiting, and with the unanswered questions. It's in those moments where everything feels like it's falling apart that your faith either fractures or it deepens. And time, if you let it, will teach you to lean into the discomfort, not to run from it, not to fix it, not to numb it, but to sit in it long enough to let God do the work in you that you never would have chosen for yourself. That takes surrender, real surrender, not the kind that says, God, I trust you, but means as long as you do it my way. I'm talking about the kind that says, even if you don't fix this the way I hoped, I believe you are still good. That kind of faith doesn't come overnight. It's grown in the soil of seasons that feel silent. It's formed when nothing makes sense, but you still choose to believe. And here's the thing. God's not asking us to be in control. He's asking us to be obedient. That's it. The outcome is His. The obedience is ours. But sometimes we confuse obedience with results. We think if we say yes to God, everything should get easier. But what if obedience makes things harder at first? What if trusting God costs you something? Friends, comfort, pride, a timeline you idolized. Would you still follow Him? Because time will teach you that real trust isn't about ease. It's about intimacy. It's about knowing God so deeply that even in the dark, even when the GPS reroutes, even when you don't feel Him, you know He's there. And that knowledge anchors you. You don't get that kind of trust through theory. You get it through time. Through the process, through the breaking, through the stretching, through every no that hurt but saved you, through every delay that wasn't denial but development. And at some point, you stop trying to figure it all out. You stop obsessing over the details, and you start resting in the truth that God is not just writing your story, He's holding the pen, and you were never meant to steal it from Him in the first place. So if you feel like you're losing control right now, maybe that's grace. Maybe that's God pulling your hands off of what you were never meant to carry. Because when you finally release the illusion of control, that's when you start walking in real peace. There comes a point in your life where you look back and realize the very things you once resented were actually the things that built you. The wounds you tried to hide, the losses that took your breath away, the betrayals that shattered your heart. Those weren't moments meant to destroy you. They were the soil God used to grow you. Time has this way of revealing that pain wasn't the end of the story. It was part of the plot that shaped the strength you now carry. Sometimes when we're in the middle of the pain, it feels impossible to imagine that anything good can come from it. We're so focused on the heartbreak that we can't see the healing. We're so buried in the disappointment that we miss the development. But if you've ever walked through something and came out wiser, stronger, and more grounded in God, then you know pain is often the tool He uses to strip away everything that doesn't belong. It humbles us, yes, but it also clarifies things. It separates what's fleeting from what's eternal. You see, over time, what used to break you will begin to bless you, not because the pain goes away, but because it no longer owns you, because now you've seen too much of God's faithfulness to go back to the person who doubted if He was working at all. You've lived through the dark and realized that light doesn't always come in the form of answers. It often shows up as endurance. And that's the gift time brings. It teaches you that every valley has a lesson, and every setback can plant a seed if you don't let bitterness choke it out. But let's be honest, it takes maturity to look at pain and still believe God is good. That kind of perspective doesn't come from comfort. It's forged in seasons of stretching. It's earned in the quiet when prayers feel like they hit the ceiling and nothing makes sense. It's in those moments that God is working the deepest. He's not just healing you, He's refining you, shaping you into someone who can carry more, love deeper, lead with humility, and worship from a place of authenticity. That's not wasted pain, that's redemptive pain. And when you finally see it, when time has done its work, you begin to thank God, not just for the doors He opened, but for the ones He closed. Not just for the miracles, but for the messes that made you desperate enough to truly seek Him. Because some of your most powerful testimonies won't come from the times you had it all together. They'll come from the moments you thought it was over, but God carried you through anyway. And now you can say with full confidence, if it hadn't been for the Lord who was on my side, I don't even know where I'd be. So don't despise the pain. Don't rush through the process. Let time do its work. Let God have his way. Because what you're walking through now may be hard, but it's not for nothing. He's building something in you that will bless others. He's writing a story in you that will give someone else hope. And in due time, when you least expect it, you'll look back and say, that was the moment I became who God always intended me to be. Because in the hands of God, even your pain becomes purpose.